Welcome to our brief Webinette on connecting medical device OEMs and contract manufacturers. Let's get started.
This is David Burton. I'm a senior solution architect with Rootstock. What we wanted to do today is walk you through some examples here. In today's world of what I call a connected company, you, in many cases, and not only in the med device space, but across many industries, companies are working with other organizations outside their organization. It may be for contract manufacturing. It may be for, I was working with a company yesterday that's uses a 3PL to distribute their product. So you have to be able to share information with those companies, information you have in your system. And the beauty of a tool like Rootstock being in the cloud is it makes it very easy to share that information. Whereas historically, when you had systems that were located behind a firewall inside your computer room, sometimes that became very difficult to do. I know I was in the industry for about 10 years, and trying to get information outside the organization was always a challenge. So let's jump in and let's take a look at a few things. I want to set the stage here quickly and just talk about the types of information that we want to share. In this case, let's say with a contract manufacturer. It becomes very important if you're going to be sharing information outside that you have a good way to organize all that information inside. You need to have your house organized. So what we're going to talk about today, if I come in, is we got an item here that's a stent. So this might be a medicated stent that would be put in an artery that's occluded, and we'll open that artery back up. And what we're going to look at here very quickly is just some of the information we keep on this stent. And this looks like a fairly simple device, right? But believe me, there's a lot of complexity that goes around that, and we in Rootstock can track that complexity. So for example, in this particular case, if we look over here on the right side, here's an image of the product here. But if we come over here on the side, we can see who our vendor is, our preferred vendor for this particular product, our primary vendor. We can have multiple vendors for this product, and they would all show up here as multiple rows. I can see what lots of this particular product I have in inventory. I can see where I have this inventory by location and by lot number. So you see there's my inventory and the quantity by lot. You come down here, we can see where we have it by location ID and location number. Now, one of the things I want to show you in a minute, this becomes very important, is this could be inventory that's in my back room, but this could also be inventory that's at my contract manufacturer, because I may have my contract manufacturer make this product for me and then hold it in stock and distribute it for me as well. So I may be taking orders, and I may be fulfilling those orders that I take against the inventory that the CM has at their facility. They could be shipping it to me as well, and then I could be distributing it in a more traditional manner. Rootstock will allow you to handle both of those. And as you go through the life cycle of a product, you may be doing all of those, or you might be doing all those at the same time, which is the case with a customer or prospect that I was talking with yesterday, where they were doing fulfillment themselves, and they also had a 3PL doing fulfillment. As I roll down here, we start to see, this shows me by different sites. Rootstock has a very powerful and flexible way to model your different locations. We're going to talk about that more in a minute. I can come down here, I can see all my purchase orders or product. So in this particular case, this particular stent, I'm having the contract manufacturer make it for me. So it's a purchased item for me. But as I come down here, I can even see my sales orders for this particular item. So right now I don't have any sales orders, but if I did, I could see what those sales orders were. And then here's my engineering information and even planned inventory requisitions out to my vendor, which we looked at a minute ago, National Supply. So the whole idea is, if we roll on down here, is just a lot more information. We're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but the idea is this is my 360-degree view of that item. So I need to get all my information together in-house before I start sharing that with someone outside. And a big part of getting that information accurate and together is to get it into one place where you can see it. And any of these screens like this that I show you today are editable. So if you don't like the way that page looks, you might say, well, I don't want that on the page. As part of the Salesforce platform and its capabilities, you can take those pages and edit those and take anything out of here that you don't like and don't want to tailor that to exactly what a particular user needs to see. If I roll over here now, let's move along. In this particular case right here, this is my engineering information. Some of that was on that last page that we just looked at. But if you notice here, some of the things that are important, this is a buy item. So, but although this is a buy item, I can have a bill of materials associated with it. So there's the bill of materials for that particular product. I can have multiple revision levels associated with that as well. And the reason I'm showing you this now is because I'm going to show you how we can share this information out with our contract manufacturer through what Tom talked about earlier, which is called a community. In the community, to use a more generic term, you can think of like a portal. That's where I can have a vendor portal, I can have a customer portal, I can have a partner portal. Call the portal whatever you want. It's just a community, but it's a way to share information with users outside your organization. So this is some of the information we're going to look at here just a little bit that we would be sharing outside with a contract manufacturer. A couple of things though that really help what I call the elastic organization that may be both buying things and manufacturing potentially the same thing in-house. A couple of things that Rootstock does here that really helps that process is with a buy item, which is considered to be a purchased item, as you saw here, I can have a bill of materials with that. If I turn that around and make that a make item, which is manufactured item, I can also buy it. I can make it myself or I can buy it. So there's a lot of flexibility in the system. So I could start out buying this product. I may develop it, probably will develop it. I'm going to develop this bill of materials. I want to share that out with my manufacturer. Some point down the road, we may go to a more hybrid model where they do some manufacturing for me. I do some in-house. And then on the other hand, I may get to a point where I do all the manufacturing. So Rootstock's able to support all that flexibility and how you do those things. So if we roll on here, just to give you an idea, within Rootstock, this is how we model an organization. Top level, we have a company, which is a set of books. This is basically a general ledger. If I come down here, I have different operating divisions, so I can have multiple divisions reporting to each company. And this is where we get into some of the things we're talking about today. I can have physical sites that are linked to divisions, and then inside of each one of those sites, we have a two-level location system for warehouse management, which has location IDs and location numbers with it. And we can centralize some of these functions. That's a little out of scope for us today, so we're not going to get into that. But basically, I can have one of these locations or one of these warehouses or one of these sites represent inventory at my contract manufacturer. I can also have inventory at my facility that doesn't belong to me, but belongs to my vendor. So there's a lot of flexibility there in how we can set that up with Rootstock. I want to show you a couple of examples here. So these are some location IDs that I've set up in the past and I use sometimes in demos. But this is a good example of how that might work. So in this particular case, this is my inventory at a contract manufacturer. This is inventory they might send to me. This is inventory at their site that they own, but I might want visibility to because they're making something for me. So lots of different ways we can go about that. The view is the same. In most cases, it's just who owns the product. But let's just take an example here. Let's go in and look at this benchmark inventory. If I come in here, this is my inventory at Benchmark. And you can see this is a particular unit here that they make for me. And this is a serialized item. So if I come over here and I expand this page, make it a little smaller, but I can see over here on the right that I can have, let's just do a view all here. This will show me what my serial numbers are for this particular product. So there are my different serial numbers right there on the end of that string that I have for that individual product. So I can track things to any level of detail. That can be a lot. That could be a serial number, but I can track what I have on site there. Now, this might be finished product, so I could take a sales order and I could have them ship out against that sales order, acknowledge me back that they shipped it through an API transaction, and then that processes that transaction in my system and I can bill for it. This might be raw materials that they consume into a production process. And so as they report completions, I see this raw material inventory start to decline. So it really depends on what we're doing there with that particular contract manufacturer. So let's go over now and let's talk for a minute. Let me blow this up so it's not such an eye chart. See if that's a little better. This is a view of my production plan for that stint that we looked at a minute ago. So in this particular case, this is my forecast on this top row, which goes out through, looks like it's like right now the end of June. So I'm forecasting I'm going to sell 150, 140, 138 units. If you look down here, as I run MRP, now I get planned requisitions to actually go buy that product. So that's standard, sort of standard functionality, right? I've got a forecast, I run MRP, I get these planned requisitions down here. If I just hover over one of these, you'll see that that's a requisition right there. Now that's a requisition that we then turn into a purchase order. And if I come down here, there's a purchase order right there. There's an example of a purchase order for that particular product that's been approved. So that'll give you an idea of what happens as part of that process. Now, typically and historically, what you would do is the vendor might not have, or the contract manufacturer may not have access to what you want as demand until you actually send them a purchase order. You might send them a spreadsheet. A lot of people will send them a spreadsheet beforehand, and then they firm that up with a purchase order later. What we want to do here is, I'm going to show you in a minute how we can share this production information out through a community with our contract manufacturer. So not only do they know in the form of a purchase order what I'm committing to, but they also have visibility by the minute as these numbers change as to what I need from them going forward over the next 2 or 3 months. So let's move along. And this is what a purchase order looks like. So we'll talk about a purchase order real quick before we go talk about the community. But this is the purchase order. This is one of those purchase orders we looked at just a minute ago, 01926. So typically what I would do is I might come and just dispatch this purchase order as an attachment, a PDF attachment to an email. But one of the things that Tom mentioned earlier is we've got the ability to take that to Slack. So if your supplier, your contract manufacturer is a Slack user, and I'm gonna fill in a couple of things here, and you wouldn't have to do this, we would have all this defaulted, but just to give you an idea, we're gonna do 1926. And then I'm gonna actually send this to myself on Slack because I don't have a purchasing user out there. But what would happen is I could send this to, let's say this guy, David Burton, as our contract manufacturer, he's my point of contact. So what I could do is if he's on Slack and we have a channel set up to connect us together and we can communicate on, I could just send that over to say send to Slack. In this particular purchase order, a link goes over to him. So then if I come over here and let me grab my Slack screen and I'll bring that over. And let me do this real quick. Let's just get this out of the way. I need a little real estate management here. Shrink that down. If I bring it up, this is what David Burton would see. He would get a link. New purchase order header was created. He could click on that hyperlink. He could actually come into my system and view that record directly. So as Tom said, instead of sending something via email, sometimes we all get email, things get lost in email. This is a much stickier channel, a much faster channel to communicate in, a tool like Slack. And if you click on view record, it'll just come back and either show you this record right here in the background or whatever else we wanted to show them as part of that link. And then we can go back and forth and collaborate. We can collaborate back and forth over Slack about this particular order. Maybe I need information on when it can be fulfilled. Maybe I need some product information. So in a more traditional means of just giving someone a purchase order, using Slack is a much faster way to make that transaction flow. Now let's go look at another example, because now we're going to go and talk about the community. And this is what Tom had mentioned earlier. If I come in here, this is an example we have in our demo system. You notice here we call this our supplier portal. So this is where your vendors could come in and see information and transact information with you. They might come in here and see things around, what uninvoiced receipts we have with them, when they can expect payment from us, or what we're showing them as expected payments we're going to make to them. Any type of information that's associated between us and them, we can show that to them either graphically or in the form of a report on the supplier community. This is completely 100% configurable. We built this ourselves from just a blank piece of paper or blank canvas. You can bring in, obviously, pictures. You can decide what information you want to display. Just like those pages I was showing you earlier that are editable within the central part of Rootstock, this is also editable information as well in terms of what you show, where it sits on the page, and how you show it. The only difference is if two different vendors come in, or if you had a customer portal, or if you had a contract manufacturer portal, if two different contract manufacturers come in, they're going to see different information down here because their security profile links them to just information that applies to them. So you don't see something that potentially your competitor might be doing with whoever the Rootstock user is. But one of the important things here is, though, everything we see here, this information is not replicated from Rootstock into some portal site or into some community site. This is the actual information that we would see inside Rootstock if we went and looked at these same dashboards. Over here on the right, we have ways that we can communicate. So very similar to what we were doing with Slack, we can communicate back and forth with someone, let's say, in procurement, if we're the contract manufacturer, and share information back and forth. But what I wanted to do was come up here and spend a few minutes and talk to you about what some of the things that I showed you earlier. And this is where those things start to come together. So at a minimum over here, we can share those purchase orders out with the vendor. So they can come over here, they can see the purchase orders we've generated for them. And if I come in here, say all, I might have different ways that I can sort those purchase orders, but they'll get a list of purchase orders and they can drill into those and see whatever we want to show them. But there's also, though, I want more information. The tighter our relationship gets as a contract manufacturer to the OEM, the tighter, the more important it is to share information that's forward-looking. So let's look at that forecast. Remember we looked at that forecast earlier that was in a grid over here? Well, now here's that same information that I'm sharing out with my contract manufacturer. So you look over here in this column here, basically what I've done now is each one of these months as I'm rolling out through 2021, January, February, March, April, May, I've firmed those up. So that basically tells the contract manufacturer, if you need to be going and buying materials, I'm essentially committing to you to these particular quantities in these months looking forward. And if we come out here to July, those are still planned. So I'm giving them a heads up. But at this point in time, I've not yet said, go buy these materials so that I'm on the hook for them if for some reason I had to cancel an order. As we go through, as we walk through that cycle, then these firm quantities here, they know that they're going to be followed up by a purchase order that we looked at over here. So now we're starting to give them more and more information and share it with them. The next thing I might want to share with them is related to the product and product information. So remember we looked at earlier, we looked at those engineering revisions. So here are the engineering revisions out there for that particular stent that we've been talking about today. This was the original product. You can see here I added some packaging to the original product. We had some problems with that packaging, so we had to actually make a packaging change. So I can come in here. So if you're the vendor, if I make that revision level change, if I make some sort of go through an ECM process, make that change, I can immediately publish that out to you. And in this related list over here, I can show you all types of information that's associated with that particular change or that particular revision level change. I can show you the new bill of materials. I can show you maybe potentially purchase orders I've got out there to you that are impacted by that change. I can show you a wealth of information that I would tailor to you as my partner that you need to make our relationship a little tighter and allow you to service me better. So this is just an example here of really how we pull that information together. I think the tone of it is today really 3 takeaways. Number one, I can keep track of inventory that's outside the four walls of my organization. Now, at some point, I need someone to share that information with me, obviously, but Rootstock supports that by being a cloud application. We can make the communication faster, even in a more traditional purchase order to vendor mode or method of operation, simply by using a tool like Slack to speed up and share that communication. And then three is the whole concept here of the supplier community or the contract manufacturer community, where you can share that information real time, not replicated information from the ERP system, but real time from the ERP system out with your manufacturers based on what you need them to see to be able to support you.
To schedule your own personalized demo of Rootstock Cloud ERP, visit rootstock.com/demo.